Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, a 6-year marriage faced a shocking turn when the wife, secretly involved in an affair, set her ex's car on fire after discovering his cheating. The husband, learning of her actions from the police, decided to end the relationship, and she faced legal consequences. The wife's life spiraled further with her grandmother's death and foreclosure. The husband coped by focusing on exercise and self-care, emphasizing the importance of fidelity. He moved on and shared his story as a cautionary tale against infidelity. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 27, and I, 33, were married for 6 years at this point, and she had been looking for a job for a year. She earned a small amount of money by making crafts and selling them on Etsy. I didn't want her to feel rushed or forced to get a job she hated. She'd already been through a really crappy childhood, so I only ever wanted to motivate her and make her feel safe. Our relationship seemed wonderful to me. She would get depressed sometimes, and I knew it was because of painful memories of the past. I asked her what was on her mind at least once a day, but much of the time she didn't say anything. When she did, it wasn't anything I could help with or didn't already know. So on this particular day at work, I got a phone call from the police department of the next county over. I was confused but listened as he explained that he had no choice but to arrest my wife today. Understandably, I freaked out. I asked him what the hell happened and what was going on. He said they received several calls about a woman setting a car on fire in one of the residential neighborhoods. My first thought was that there was no way it was my wife, but he verified her name and phone number and said they had possession of her car. I was absolutely mind-daft. I asked if she gave any statement, the reason for being there, or an explanation, and he said so far she was unwilling to talk to them. I asked if she was allowed to call me, and instead he asked me to come in person to talk to her. I agreed. When I got there, they had me sit in the interview room with her. Her expression went from hardened and angry to soft and defeated. She covered her face with her hands. I asked her what the heck happened. I needed to know because I could not figure this out. She whispered that she couldn't tell me. I asked why. She said it was because we were being recorded and I wouldn't want to know. I said she was wrong. I wanted to know. And she was apparently caught red-handed, so the only thing left to do was explain herself. She sat up, revealing her reddened and depressed face. She said she was setting fire to her ex's car because he cheated on her. After I let this sink in a bit, I asked her how long ago this happened and why seek revenge now? She really didn't want to answer me anymore, but I was her husband. She was in a police station. Her options were limited. After breathing a lot and crying, she told me he cheated on her last night. I said, "What?" And she went on to explain that she'd been seeing him for a few months while I was at work. I could not believe what I was hearing. The cops were going to have a ball watching this drama unfold. So I clarified that she was seeing AP behind my back. And when she found out he cheated on her last night, she decided to set his car on fire in broad daylight. After hearing my words, she looked like a shell of a woman. I told her I was ashamed to be her husband. She exposed her own affair by losing any self-control or responsibility she had left. I told her we were over and left the police station. I got a few sorry looks from some of the officers. My wife freaked out. She could only call people with permission from the cops. So the next person she called was her grandmother who raised her. Her grandmother actually thought it was a scam call and didn't look into it any further for another 3 weeks. Then she was finally contacted and paid my wife's bail. In order to afford it, she had to take out a loan. This was just the start of my wife's consequences. After she was out of jail, she tried to call me over and over again. After receiving 15 calls in one day, I finally answered it. She begged me to hear her out and at least meet her for coffee. She said it was the least I could do after the ordeal she'd been through. and our 6-year relationship deserved one more chance of survival. I laughed a good, hearty laugh. I told her our 6-year relationship was over. Dead. In the past, I only kept that relationship with her in good faith that she would never go behind my back and sleep with another man. Not only did she do that, but she also jumped at criminal activity by setting his car on fire. She wailed and sobbed into the phone like it was her lifeline. I told her she made the decision to go behind my back, and anyone should know it's only a matter of time before the truth comes out. I just got lucky because her idiotic actions did the work for me. I wished her luck in whatever she tries to do next with her life. As I said that, she started screaming for me not to hang up. But I did. Her aunt contacted me 4 months later. She asked if she could bring a truck over to get my ex's belongings. I said that was fine, and she went on to explain that my ex's grandmother passed away and the house was in foreclosure. So my ex was moving in with her, and I'd finally get her crappy belongings out of my house. That sounded fine to me. I did wonder how she was holding up, but I didn't ask. By this point, started seeing another woman and did not want to give any false hope by asking questions. I hope my story encourages everyone not to cheat on their partner. There are 2 things that helped me get through this ordeal the most. The first was exercising daily. I didn't want to do it, but I forced myself to use my muscles until I could feel the burn. It helped me to get out, built up anger, and turn my attitude around for the better. I wasn't feeling down on myself. I was feeling positive and capable. The second thing I did was show myself love and care by doing what I wanted. Most of the time it was listening to music and dancing. Other times it was reading, watching TV, drawing, playing music, or going for a walk. Today's second story. In this story, a couple married in their 20s, overcoming the wife's long-distance ex-boyfriend. Years later, the wife rekindled a secret relationship with her ex, hiding it and seeking financial support from her husband. Uncovering her betrayal, he confronted her and strategically initiated a divorce while she was away on a fake work trip. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 32, and I, 35, got married when we were in our 20s. She had trouble cutting ties with a long-distance boyfriend she dated for 4 years. She never told me where he lived, but she did tell me he lived 5 hours away. During our dating phase, I told her to choose who she wanted to build a life with. I left her alone for a few days, and she showed up at my house appearing cleansed and pure of heart. She said goodbye to him for real and blocked him on all platforms. She was ready to take this next step into adulthood and responsibility by committing herself to me. I was pleased, but even after she did this, I still waited 2 years before proposing. A little before our wedding, she got kind of antsy, but she disguised it as healthy anticipation. After we were married, she seemed much more at ease, like she finally moved on and was settling into her new life. A whole year after we were married, she started friendships and daily communication with her coworkers. Our marriage was wonderful for years, but I didn't know that for much of the time. She was talking to her ex again. Another thing I should have looked into a little more was how my wife begged me for money. I didn't know it, but she was paying some of AP's bills and buying him things. Our utility bills were barely paid down enough to avoid shutting off. I checked her phone one morning when she forgot it on the way to work. She came back for it, but by then I saw and copied all I needed to. I scrolled back far enough on their messages to find where she tried to keep it strictly friends. She said she missed him so much and thought about him every day. She couldn't resist a little bit of harmless community vacation. It started as her just wanting to know what he did each day, and then how his dating life was going. They gradually became more and more flirty, and throughout all their messages, she never once mentioned she was married. I wanted to throw up. She was trying to stay strictly friends with an ex-boyfriend, but wouldn't tell him about me, and failed to tell me about her friendship with him. In the most recent texts, she said she needed to see him again and started talking about having reunion intimate. He was thrilled. I worked up the nerve to tell her to her face that we were over and she needed to get out. But before I could say it, she started telling me a story. It was a giant lie about an upcoming work trip in Altoona. I swallowed all the courage and confrontation I was prepared to dish out and pretended to support her. I knew she was going to visit AP, but the time she was gone would be the perfect time to change the locks, get out her stuff, and file for divorce without her being around to freak out. Little did I know that karma wasn't done with her yet. I kissed her goodbye, and she left for 3 days. On the 4th day, I anticipated the breakup call I was going to make, informing her that I knew everything, had proof, filed for divorce, and if she tried to come back on my property, the cops would be called. Before I could dial her number, she called me. She said she was stuck on the side of the highway, 3 hours from our house and way off course from where she told me she was going for her work trip. This was Rich. I pretended to be concerned and confused about her location, and she couldn't make up anything believable. She just said she was misinformed. When she told me where the conference was going to be, I played with her nervous emotions a little more before telling her. I knew she was a cheating skank, and I had all the proof I needed from her cell phone. She sucked in air so hard I thought she would pull the phone in. Just like that, her world became big and scary. She was sitting alone on the side of the highway before she could beat her cheating scheme. And now she had to face the reality that she didn't have a home to return to. I told her I only let her go on the trip without telling her I knew the truth, so I got the chance to file for divorce and get a leg up on dumping her. She was terrified and didn't know what to say. I told her if she tried bugging me or starting rumors, I'd share what she'd done with the whole town. So I hung up on her, and she texted me a few times, begging me to let her come back to get her stuff and maybe let us talk this out. Since I didn't reply, she called AP. He did come to rescue her, but she lied to him, too, about where she lived. She told him she was living with a roommate right around the area where she broke down on the highway, so he asked why she couldn't get her to help. My wife had a meltdown and told him she was actually married and now about to be divorced because I found out about them. I imagine he was shocked and frustrated, but he allowed her to live with him for 5 months. By that time, he had already cheated on her, and when he realized not even that would make her go, he told her she was a mistake and needed to leave. Of course, even without my help, her family and friends found out we divorced. She was gone for 5 months without saying goodbye to anyone. I think she ended up finding some desperate person looking for a roommate because they couldn't afford the rent on their trailer. She had to pick somewhere close because she never got her car fully repaired. After AP's rescue, I don't know where she's going in life, but I've remained hopeful and grateful and found lots of support from people I least expected. Even my ex's parents expressed their apologies and sent me nice things in the mail.